Hey guys, welcome to Friday yet again. Today is June 11th already. Welcome to Elevate.Strategy, our leadership live stream yet again. Every week I've got awesome guests coming on. I'm so happy and thrilled. We've got guests booked all the way to, I think, August. And what I try to do is to try to have a mix of different leaders come on. So if you think back to the very first interview about 4 weeks ago now, we had an IT veteran who'd been part of billion-dollar global entities, and then we had a partner from like Deloitte, but used to be at Accenture where I worked with, and then we had someone last week who came in who had written a book on what does it mean to lead from inside out. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and for those of you watching the rebroadcast, that you were able to reach out to some of these guests because they're actually quite friendly people. So, and many of them I've worked with before. Just a very quick update on Elevate. For those of you who are wondering about our progress, it's been really awesome. It would be a really good start to the beginning of summer. We launched a new series coming up. It's going to be sort of a blog kind of series that's really intended for a younger audience. And so I'm excited to get that started. But for those of you who are joining, we did have a time shift today, so I apologize for that. But there's going to be a rebroadcast, so please do feel free to join us for that. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today. She's a very special friend of mine. We worked together when we were at one of the firms I was at before I left corporate to do coaching. And her name is Irena Cerovina. And our history goes back a couple of years, and I'll bring her in a second. But first of all, you need to know something about her is that she's quite a wide spectrum of skills that's especially to do with retail and consumer. And you'll see in a second that her journey to get here was actually quite interesting. So Irena has had various leadership roles in multi-billion-dollar companies in Walmart, Home Depot, Sears Canada, and Shoppers Drug Mart. And if you see the introduction written paragraph that I had for her introducing, you'll see that she's been a powerhouse across all kinds of functions. So her career has taken her from merchandising to sourcing and operations, and also retail operations. And now in the role that she's in at PwC, she's a digital operations lead there. So without further ado, I'm just going to bring her into front stage, and she can introduce herself.
Hi, Simeon. Hi, everybody for watching. Looking forward to this discussion, Simeon. I've been love retail. I'm someone that's very passionate about retail.
Yeah.
But on something personal, I had 2 kids. I'm a mom of 2 toddlers as well. So it's been quite a journey also experiencing the shift from being single or married in the career versus now being a mom as well, and trying to manage the career and both. So it's been quite a journey, especially with the COVID as well. So
I remember when we first met, I think you were pregnant. You hadn't had your first child yet. And that was an exciting time because there was that uncertainty of, what was going to happen now that you had to work-life balance after when you gave birth. And so now it's wonderful to see years later, there's been a lot of progress, I guess, in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that I think a lot of audience members want to know is the career journey of folks who start from somewhere and they end up where they are today. So I'm just going to kick it off and just get up, to the meat of the bullet, and we'll talk about some more fun things later on. But can you maybe describe what is the nature of your profession today? What is it that you do for a living?
So currently, I definitely am within retail industry. Let's say in terms of function and focus would be the retail and consumer markets or CPG industry, predominantly retail. But I would say if you want to talk about the journey, I never thought I'm going to be in retail, right? Like just didn't graduate and say I'm going to be work for retail industry one day. So what happened for me was while putting myself through university and school, working part-time jobs within Sears Canada at the store. And, upon graduating, I just I actually had a hard time finding that first job, which I think is probably out there for some of the younger people that are starting up their career straight from university. And I remember one of the things, just applying, being told you have no experience. So that was a challenge.
Right. Right.
Didn't have a strong network at all, because originally I wanted to be a teacher and I didn't get into teacher school, like, because it
Okay.
only applied at York University,
Right.
didn't apply anywhere. And I remember 11,000 students applied and only 700 got in. So
Wow.
what I, yeah, so what I ended up doing was I literally went and did my degree again, and I chose business, right? So I thought I can always apply for teachers, if I have to later.
Right.
But basically, that's how the business journey has taken me that way. And then what I ended up doing was focusing, on that, getting that first job. And I really wanted to get into consulting. And I didn't have a strong, let's say, network. I applied, I applied to various companies. And like I said
Mhm.
earlier, it was very tough. So what I ended up doing is I was now trying to be creative, and I thought maybe I can work for Sears Canada.
Okay.
And then what I end up doing is I go to this HR store manager at the store at the Fairview Mall where I worked with, and her name was Elizabeth. And I said, "Who is the HR, manager or person within head office?" Because before nothing was online, but what was is they would print out, job descriptions, and then you would just apply that way.
Right.
And I
Right.
just didn't get anywhere and get through anywhere. So what I ended up doing was
Mm.
basically I reached out to this lady. I emailed her. 3 times I was told, we have no opportunities. I even offered to volunteer. And lo behold, like, I get an email one day, and she's like, "Oh, there's an opportunity opened up, but it's in head office. It's part-time." So I
Okay.
thought maybe it was a test. So that's how I fell into, let's say, retail, and that's how my retail journey began,
So
literally.
you were trying to apply for a job in store,
Yeah.
and you didn't, but they called you back for a role that was in head office.
Yeah, no, I was
Okay.
working in the store. So what I ended up doing was, at the store, I was looking at opportunities for head office. So
Got it.
so what
Got
I
it.
ended up doing was I just applied that way, but I got the contact name from an HR and corporate office
Hmm.
recruiter, and I just tried to get volunteer experience and trying to reach out. So I was very persistent, I would say, and I said I'm gonna keep trying. And I got that role, and it was the merchandise flow, marketing coordinator, I remember.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember my first day of work sitting, looking through flyers, promotional flyers, and just checking if it's matching in the system. And I thought, oh my God, is this what I finished school for?
Right.
It was just
Right.
that first check in for me. Like, is this what I'll be doing sitting? And so it was quite, I would
Yeah.
say,
Learning experience.
experience and learning experience. But I was happy to get that first job, right?
Right.
So
Right. Right.
from there, what ended up happening is I ended up working for Sears for about, I would say, 12 years. And
Okay.
from that role, I always looked to obviously deliver, perform. At that time, I didn't have in back of my head the career journey, what I want to be, but it
Okay.
was more,
Yeah.
I was taking different experience and trying to learn within retail. I do know that
Mhm.
I always enjoyed retail, like, so all the roles I had within Sears, so from merchandising, being a buyer, to sourcing for them. So quite young, I was, I think, 24 when I was given an opportunity to go on a sourcing trip, and I was managing the sourcing with the
Right.
home decor team, right? So it was a big journey, right? Because all of a sudden I'm meeting different people from around the globe who have different working styles as well. It was a great
Right.
experience
Right.
early on as well. And then
So,
from there,
so
I get
you
a, yeah, go ahead.
so you cut your teeth in merchandising. That's kind of how you got
Yeah,
into. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. And
yeah,
were you fascinated because when I think about retail, one of the reasons why I went into retail to begin with was I actually, my son, one day we went into Toys R Us, and he was looking for a Lego set, and I realized that he didn't really know how a Lego set actually gets into a store.
Yeah.
So retail was fascinating to me because that whole sourcing element of getting things into the store was pretty impressive. So is that kind of how you felt as well? The kind of
Yeah. So what a lot of people don't know about retail, I would say, until you join retail, is how diverse not only opportunities that you end up having, and I think now is even bigger with technology, right? Opportunities, but you're not only there's opportunities from not only sourcing, but then you're having merchandising. So there's marketing component. Then you have supply chain, right? So a lot of people are, and then you have retail operations, which is from your store, but now you can have digital operations, which would be from your e-commerce perspective. And I
Mhm,
think the retail in general as an industry, I remember even when at my Home Depot days, for example, it's such a retailer that's very dynamic, fast paced. Like I worked for Walmart, same thing. Like all the top retailers, like super exciting, innovation, fast paced environment. So
mhm,
when I
mhm.
joined consulting, everyone's telling me, "Oh, it's going to be crazy hours." But what ended up being is I felt like, I guess you haven't worked in retail industry, because retail is
Right.
pretty much very action oriented, but it's also a very dynamic place to work.
Gotcha.
And that's something I really enjoyed and I loved about it. And then all of a sudden, I've seen, because I'm curious by nature,
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
why within my career journey, I worked in another areas of the businesses, but also even within the companies, because I wanted to learn more. And
Mhm.
everywhere I went, it was for me to learn and gain further experience.
Right, right.
As well. So I would say it
As
opened
you,
up my eyes about the industry pretty much. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and as you grew up the ranks, what were some of the challenges that you felt, or at least what were some of the things that you realized that didn't make retail as simple as you thought it was, right?
I would say when you're trying in general to grow within the company, I think what's challenging in retail is because you're working, if you're in merchandising or any other area of the business, is working with cross-functionally with different areas of the business. So, for
Right.
example, if you are a merchant, all of a sudden right now you're dealing with e-commerce, you have operations teams, you have, supply chain teams, you have marketing, you have your vendors, it's such a broad spectrum of various departments and cross-functional stakeholders that you're working with that are
Hmm.
impacting, let's say, your business. So I think it's an exciting area, like
Right.
definitely the merchandising, I would say, is super exciting area to be in, but it's as well very challenging at the same time, right?
Right.
So I would say one of the things that I would say the challenges that I faced in is when I was on the opposite side. Now all of a sudden I'm in sourcing or
Mm.
I'm in operations supporting merchants.
Right.
You
Right.
know, making sure that you're looking through their perspective as well. And I think in any areas of the business, the challenging part is everyone is caught up with getting stuff done, getting the
Hmm.
results. It's
Right.
that daily business that stuff that happens on a daily business that we forget sometimes to see sometimes certain things through their eyes, like what matters to them, etc.
Right.
So I think that to me that was one thing that I had to learn early on, and it has helped me throughout my career when I
Hmm.
worked with other retailers, when I had to develop certain processes or make changes happen within the organization. It was the key to how do you actually work with cross-functionally with others, and I think
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
very important. The
Right.
other challenge I would say is when you are working collaboratively with others, you know I usually am super honest and genuine at heart, and in every role that I've been,
Yes.
I
Yeah,
always
totally.
worked what's best for the organization. So what
Right.
works, what it and even when I did a couple of those leadership surveys, the thing that comes up is I forgot which one the survey was, but it came that I always look out what's best for the organization, the outcome
Right.
for the organization versus for myself. So what ends up happening is that's why I was always looking to collaborate, because I know if we collaborate as a team, it will work well. Well, in my previous experience, what happened is there was a situation where I was given an opportunity to lead certain project because, I was newer within the organization, and they wanted me to meet other VPs or executives within the organization.
Right. Right.
And unfortunately, the other person and I reported to the same boss, but she was looking after this for a long time, so she felt like huge attachment to the project, and I really was looking to work collaboratively, and it was only one time for me, like organizing this event, so it wasn't continuing afterwards, it was just one
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, in front of our boss, she would say, yes, awesome, I'll help, but then behind my back she would go schedule meetings with everyone, things were happening in the dark where I wasn't even aware of, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then all of a sudden I schedule the meetings, I invite her, and then we're in the meeting and everyone's like, but we covered this. And then all of a sudden stakeholders started being confused.
Right. Sure.
So that was, sometimes you have those challenges. And then what I went is that I'm the type of person that goes directly to the individual. And I said, hey, I thought we're working, I was leading this, and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of had that discussion. And basically from there, she said, oh, I'm sorry, but this is
Sure.
mine. And
Yeah.
and I basically touched base with my leader, and I said, here's the situation. Like, I asked her to go together, she didn't want to,
Right. Right.
and unfortunately she didn't show up. But then I said, for the best of the company, I think, I really wanted to do this, but I think because it started, I don't want to waste VPs and SVPs time. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous now, this whole situation. I said it's best if,
Right.
and my boss agreed, and he said the funny part was it was a test of leadership for that other person
Right.
to be
Sure.
able to progress to the next level, to
Right.
see if they're able to lead someone at the director level or senior director level. And then what ended up happening is they kind of failed the test. So
Right.
it's interesting. There's always interesting dynamics
Right.
for
Right.
sure.
The learning experience. So,
Yeah.
so for those of us, just a segue here, those of us joining here, we have Irena Cerovina, who's a digital operations lead at PwC right now. She's focusing on retail and consumer, which is why we're talking about that right now. Irena, tell me a little bit about, so aside from the working relationships and kind of developing the office acumen, personally speaking, did you ever go through a period of time when you were kind of progressing where you felt sort of a lack of confidence, or tell me a little bit about your personal journey to get to where
Hmm.
you are?
I would say definite throughout my career, yes. I would say when the person, in terms of confidence, every time I would take on a new position or a role, or even joining new company, you kind of
Right.
have a feeling what's waiting for me there, and you can deliver based on your experience, but then there's part
Mhm.
of you where who are the teams, can I deliver, and you know um, all of those things. So I think by
Right.
nature I do tend to question that.
Mhm.
But I would say in terms of confidence, I would say when I joined PwC, within the company, I've never done consulting before. So that's
Mhm.
when I really, not that I was scared, like I knew what clients would feel because I was in their shoes. So understanding their issues and challenges. But it
Right.
was more now all of a sudden you're doing the business development, the delivery side of the thing. So I think that's an area where at the beginning I actually was lacking some confidence just because I've never done it
Mhm.
before, right?
Right.
So it was challenging at the beginning for me because when you're working in the industry and making such a big shift into consulting, it's a big move because in
Right.
the industry,
It-
you're
yeah.
making decision, it's very dynamic, it's fast paced, you're in charge of a P&L, you have people that you're leading and developing and making sure when you're implementing changes. But
Right.
now
Right.
in consulting, you're framing, you're solving problems, but the way you're solving problems is we're developing hypotheses and solutions solutions, right? Like there's the framework around, getting and
Right.
solving the problem. Whereas in retail, you really have to act fast. Like, here's the
Yeah.
issue,
Sure.
you got to get on it, right? So it
So when you
meant,
were
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask. And by the way, anyone who is listening, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box for Irena. Irena, I had a question for you based on what a lot of clients have said to me, and many folks are trying to make a jump from industry to consulting and vice versa. Aside from having to learn all these skills that you never had before, what are some of the challenges around dynamics, right? So team dynamics, they're very different from my experience working in a company versus a consulting firm. So what
Yeah.
should people expect to change if they are going to go into consulting from industry?
Absolutely. So it's very different dynamic because at the end of the day, within industry, you're owning, like I said, P&L, you're making decisions,
Hmm.
and you're a boss. You know what you need to deliver, goals and objectives, the cross-functional stakeholders. But within the consulting industry, it's all about relationship building. And again, I have to say, in
Right,
the industry, you
right.
do have to build relationships as well. But at the same time, everyone is working kind of towards same goal of sales and making sure
Right,
you're
right.
meeting customers. Here, same within firm, you're trying to meet clients expectations. But what's different about it is that it's a hugely relationship based. You're in charge of as much as I always say to people, doesn't matter where you work, you're in charge of your personal development. So same in
Right.
the industry or
Sure.
wherever we work. However, what's different here is you don't necessarily have your direct boss. So what ends up happening is you're having, they call it a coach, someone that mentors you, someone that helps you grow throughout the organization. But what's
Hmm.
very different is you have to work with various different partners, for example, with
Right,
different,
right.
your teams are always changing. So you're not necessarily working always with the same team. So what
Hmm.
happens
Hmm.
is you're always going through the stages of, what was it, storming, norming, performing phase of the team, right?
It's been
Work.
a while for me since
Yeah.
business school, but yeah,
So
sure.
what ends up happening is, in the consulting though, is once you find that team that really works for you, a lot of people start figuring out, well, you know what, I prefer to work with this team. And then sometimes you see a lot of similar people on the project because obviously they have
Right,
to have skill set and competence, right? So
right.
they wouldn't be on, obviously you have to have that. But at the same time, people are doing what's easier, right, to make sure to deliver the client. One of the biggest differences I'm noticing is in terms of leadership, I would say, skill set. And I find leaders in the industry have bit more time, I would say,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
in terms of development, making sure that people are looked after in terms of developing. So if they see the talent, to grow them within the organization. I find because we're so busy in consulting with clients, we're focused on clients. I find sometimes that's being forgotten a little bit, at least from my experience.
Right,
But the
right.
company has done a great job in terms of having tools out there, right?
Mm.
Everything is available. But at the same time, you really need to have, people kind of sponsors, I would say, to be able to grow. And that's not consulting based, but it's everywhere within
Right.
your
Sure.
career, wherever you are in the journey. You have to definitely have people that are your sponsors to help you grow further
Right.
within career. The other thing I would say, what's different in consulting is, so to me, it would be the biggest two would be the fact that you don't necessarily have a boss, and the relationship building. And third is sometimes when you're, based on my experience, I've seen certain situations happen, let's say in a certain area or competency. And when you do challenge sometimes someone that's maybe in senior roles, some of them take it very well and they appreciate the feedback, but you can see sometimes, so
Mhm.
some don't necessarily take that feedback
Right, right.
right. So I think to make it work, I'm a firm believer is you have to be yourself.
Right.
And I learned from a former CEO. I remember when I was taking my executive IB program, like one of the things I said to him, I tend to have tendency to be, we had opportunity to have one-on-one discussions, to be direct, but not like honest, like, but not too honest, but like
Right. Right.
assertive to a degree that it's appropriate, right? So not,
Sure.
assertive. And he said you have to be you, and he said that you just got to find the spot that works well, and the area of the business that works well,
Hmm.
the company as well, the values, because being assertive is a huge, it's
Right.
a big thing, right? So it's and he said, like, I'm assertive myself, right? So sometimes, you have to be yourself, and make sure whoever you work with are there to help you out as well. And I think it's a two-way street, right? So it's
Right. For sure. Yeah, for sure. So, for everyone who's listening, we're talking to Irena Cerovina right now, and the topic is the journey to the top. And just a kind of a big plug for why I put that title against your name, Irena, is first of all, we didn't decide on a topic, but I thought, what would be a better way to kind of represent how it is that you came from beginning your career to you now. One of the things that has always struck me about you is that you name drop a lot, not in a mean way, but you know a lot of people. So networking is obviously one of your strengths in my mind. Can you give the listener maybe some tips around what the best way is to network and to get to know people who perhaps can teach you something, or maybe even later on can maybe offer you a job or something like that? Tell me something about your networking skills and your ability to do that.
I to me, I was never afraid. Like, yeah, and I go back to like my very first job when I started.
Right,
It's always about being out there and not being afraid. Because I think sometimes we tend to be afraid of reaching out or sending that email, or someone that we listen to in the conference, for
right,
example,
right,
and you feel, oh my God, it's probably going to be 10 million people sending, and but at the end of the day, a lot of the times the people are really nice and they really want to help. And I
hmm
think what
hmm
I've done is, if I enjoyed someone, speaking and listening in the engagement, I would definitely approach them, tell them
right,
that I enjoyed and why I enjoyed it, and leave it at that. But I don't think it's good to be pushy. And I think the key with the network is not only to reach out to them when you need something. It has to be like two-way street, right? So it's if you enjoy running or finding certain common stuff that you like, is it CrossFit, is it running, is it playing tennis,
hmm
is it watching sports, whatever it is, I think it's critical that you have something that's in common, definitely, to be able to strike up that first conversation. And
right,
sometimes you may have that first meeting with the person and you don't need to ask them right away, for a job or what you need or opportunities,
hmm
right? But it's more of having that genuine relationship and building it. I think it's critical, and all of us are. It's tough, to be honest with you, keeping up,
right,
because of all the we're all busy daily, from personal to professional. But I think sometimes sending a message over LinkedIn, if you see someone promoted, like congratulating them, also being happy for them at that time. Like if you see
hmm
some great, and I've had a situation where people were, just growing up through their career, and all of a sudden they're, in the big positions, right? Or so it's, you never know where people will go, and you never, and my always thing was, whenever you leave the places, wherever you work, is to leave on good terms, right? So
right,
never
sure.
break, you don't want to, and
Build
sometimes
bridges. Yeah,
grass is not, yeah, and sometimes grass
yeah,
is not always greener on the other side
right,
as well.
right,
So I think it's important just to maintain your network and to maintain your relationship. And I would say I was never afraid. And even when people would not reply to me, I would say, hey, they're either too busy,
hmm
or you know what? It's okay, move on, let's go next, right? So
right, right,
don't I sometimes we tend to lose confidence, we tend to think it's us, but sometimes it's not us. It's just
hmm
the, unfortunately, the nature of the life and how everyone is busy. Sometimes they just you know, uh they don't have time, or
right, right. Well,
sometimes the
I
people
think
are
I think there's a theme. There's a theme that's come through here for me is, uh, well, number one is you're a very optimistic person in general. And number two is, I think it's thinking of the best of the other person, right? You're not
yeah,
thinking that they're they're negatively not reacting to you because they don't like you, but really it's because,
Yeah.
well, they might be busy, genuinely busy, and let's move on. I think the hashtag let's move on is really in due course. It's something that I talk to my clients a lot about, where you can only spend so much time thinking about what you could have done better, and finally you have to move on, right? You have to move on with
Yeah.
your life. I apologize. There's someone drilling
It's
upstairs,
okay. It's
but
all good.
that's great. So we talked about the networking element of things. Um, just going back very quickly to the personal element of things, can you describe maybe one particular instance or experience where you were rejected? You felt that there was a rejection, either in the expectation of a role that you were given, or maybe even being rejected for a role, a job admission, because of something that you didn't have the experience for. You felt bad. So you're an optimistic person, but tell me about a time where you felt rejected and it wasn't as optimistic, and how did you work through that element of things?
I think obviously early on, I always, maybe it's just growing up, I was always, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And
Sure.
you never, I was always also a firm believer certain things happen in our life or even career paths
Yeah.
to take us to somewhere. And maybe at that time we don't know, we are, I definitely, you feel sad, you feel, you all of a sudden you're questioning your confidence, then you start comparing yourself. What did this person
Right.
have that I didn't have?
Right. Right.
Or, what is, so then all of a sudden you're always questioning yourself. But maybe sometimes when you're rejected, it's just, but I always, again, the difference also sometimes with me is I always want to know why. For example, like, what is it, like, is it my experience? So I ask a question,
Mhm.
what is it the experience, or is it the, just to, so you know where you stand, right?
Right.
But
Right.
also, I think it's important to value the feedback we get throughout our career. But sometimes, obviously, and if you see consistency of your feedback everywhere you worked, then you kind of can incorporate that. But I think when you get in rejection, it's not, I'm not always, I'm not going to be always, yay, I got a rejection. You're sad about it, obviously, and you're also, I don't want to say be resentful. There's a softer word for it, but you just start questioning all of a sudden your abilities, your skill
Right.
set, and you're just like, well, what did that person have? And I went through it, even, I would say, like, couple of times. It's not like first times through rejections, like even early on, like when I tried to apply within university. But I always say, you know what? I'm not gonna feel sad and sorry for myself. What is that
Mhm.
next? I'm looking right away. I'm looking for solution. I'm out there, right? And it's not trying to be happy, but kind of not letting it drag me down, let's say.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
can see it in sports all the time, like looking forward to Rafa Nadal and Djokovic playing, and they're probably starting to play. But when they lose, they're not sulking. It's tough moment, you lose, but you got to pick yourself up and go on, right? So I think with
Right.
any rejection, you never know why it's good. I think if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And I think maybe I again, in my head, I ingrain is maybe something better is
Mhm.
supposed to be out there for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I think it's tough. It's not easy time. Especially when you have now with kids, they don't want to see you sad, or and how do
Right.
you teach
Right.
them?
You don't want to
But
bring it home with you. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think earlier it happens in our life to face those rejections, to
Right. Sure.
fail, the better, because you learn earlier on, and then I think you really have to be positive. And I know it's, everyone says that, probably, I don't know, but I do think you got to pick it up, and you just got to, don't feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be a victim. You just got to go out there. And I've seen people being creative. All of a sudden they're opening their own businesses. Their businesses are doing very well. And then
Yeah.
you see
Yeah.
people around you going, wow, like, look at all the stuff that took them there.
Right.
If
Right.
they didn't go through certain things, I think they lead us somewhere. So
Right. Right. For sure. What would your teammates or your colleagues say about you? What's one word they would use to describe you, do you think?
I would say, I know definitely genuine, but cross-functional, a good cross-functional stakeholder to have. Let's say I'm very collaborative, so
Okay,
cross-functional skills, I would say, from people. But if you look other people, they would say, definitely genuine, and honest. So
gotcha.
which back
Wh-
which can backfire too,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
was going to
good.
say, which puts you in a very vulnerable spot,
Yeah,
right? When you genuinely care about something, it's kind of supersedes business, supersedes the P&L, right? It actually
yeah.
goes to the human element of things, which is one thing that I really appreciate about our friendship and about the way that you work. So, if you were to give one piece of career advice, I know we've talked a lot about networking, talked a lot about being genuine, but giving career advice, I'm sure people have approached you and said, "Irena, can you give me some advice or counsel?" What would you say to them to have a successful career?
I would say, to me, it's always to build on your skill set and knowledge. So you constantly have to upskill, make sure you're not, your skills are meeting and even now within retail, I look at it's all getting technical, right? So we got to
Mhm,
get into
mhm.
right away. It's not how this stuff used to be done. So making sure that you're upskilling yourself, the
Right, right.
knowledge, that would be one important. But I would say the second one that's extremely important, and I don't think a lot of people talk about it, is having a sponsor. I think you can be smart, you can get stuff done, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a sponsor, it can be tough to climb the corporate ladder, right?
Right,
So
right.
I think, w- to me, what sponsor means is, what are these people speaking about you when you're not there? Are
Mhm.
they your good supporters? Do they want to see you grow, right? So finding someone, I think, is critical within the organization. I was lucky to experience, in my career, to have some sponsors as I was, working with it when I was at Walmart and when I was at Home Depot. Like, I experienced having that sponsor and the importance of having the sponsors, and someone that guides you, trains you. They're
Mhm,
available there because
mhm.
they see a talent, they see an opportunity, but they're
Right,
also
right,
there to help you, right? So I
right.
think, and also having tough conversations with sponsors, when sometimes you fail or certain things are not being delivered,
Mm,
those sponsors will have those conversations, and don't take it personally, right? So it's all about improving, right? And having that constructive feedback. Take that constructive feedback and work on it, I think, is critical. But definitely, if you don't have a sponsor and you have all the stuff, I find it's very rare to climb the corporate ladder. You really do need to have a sponsor.
right, right,
And to me, that would be number one advice, is to always have a sponsor, and someone that can help. But at the same time, I want to call out that having a mentor and sponsor is not the same thing.
right.
Mentor is someone that
Sure.
you can have, through, not necessarily working with you in the company, but outside company, that are there available for you for advice, to kind of say to them, look,
Mm,
what would you do if you were me in this spot? Or they guide you, like they help you out. But a sponsor is someone that's within the company and that
right,
has an
right.
impact, right? So
And a mentor could possibly be a colleague of the same
exactly.
same
Yeah,
level as well, right?
yeah, yeah,
And you can share war stories and thinking about how do we get through a
yeah.
situation. And sometimes you set aside that internal competition to kind of one up each other because you're both going up the same ladder, but on a human level, be able to connect and kind of help each other out.
Exactly,
Yeah, that's
exactly. And
that's
and that's also a good side of, I would say, to consulting, that I find, is once you meet like your people within like the firm, and once you build that relationship network, everyone is really helping each other because we're solving client the problems,
Mhm.
right? So there is a good aspect to it as well. I've seen it with like managers, senior associates, like you see it with directors. Everyone's like, oh, here, we're sharing, like we're working together. So it's still there, I would say, but it's something that I would say is very also important, no matter where we work, because emotional intelligence is very important, like having empathy, understanding other people, what they're going through, through as well at the same time. So it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but
Gotcha.
but sponsor is number one.
Gotcha. Yeah. I actually quite a number of my guests were my sponsors all throughout my life, and many of them have moved on to other roles. But in various parts of my career, early on, for example, I needed someone to teach me business acumen. Right? What is it
Yeah,
like to sit in a meeting, a boardroom meeting, and kind of speak your piece, but know when to not say anything. And later on, it was about managing people and how do you manage
yeah,
expectations and setting goals for them, right? And as you get more senior, then the skills that you need to have expand, and probably
exactly,
you might have more than one mentor, more than one coach, right? Depending on what it is.
exactly.
Well, this has been great, Irena. The purpose of this is really for the listener to hear your story and to get some tips from you. Is there any parting words that you like to say? I mean, if there isn't, that's fine. But sometimes I leave it open so that people can kind of air the wisdom out.
No, I mean, I would just say you have to be yourself, and be true to yourself. And I know sometimes we say, maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe I should have, questioning yourself. And that also can screw up your confidence at the same time. I would say is just go there, deliver, be yourself. And I think eventually we all find a place in organization that matches not only our values, but we enjoy where we are. And at the same time, like, if you're someone, I'm curious by nature, so that's how it led me to consulting industry, to be honest. Like, I
Right,
love problem solving, but I still love, what I'm passionate about is really the retail industry, right? So
right,
to me is make sure you enjoy what you like. And sometimes we're so caught up with daily stuff that it's hard. I hear a lot of talks is, make sure you do what you love, love, and it's important. But sometimes we end up doing stuff we don't necessarily love,
right,
right? Because it's getting us there.
right,
I think, but and it happened to me. I was in a certain role and I didn't enjoy it much. And you're looking at alternatives to find those roles that
right.
you'll enjoy, and the companies that you'll enjoy. And not everything is roses all the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think our career, some people have a great career journey. They go like just corporate ladder, working, growing. It's
Right,
through the same
right.
company maybe, but then you have other people's careers that are just all over the place as well. And I feel like I've had a situation where I changed the industries, and it's been great. I learned a lot, and we'll see where it takes me. I don't know where I want to go next.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. Well, where can people find you if they want to ask you more about any of the things that you talked about today?
Just LinkedIn,
Okay,
reach out. I'm happy to connect with people, and if they need help with anything, also happy to help. Um, I went
gotcha,
through, just all of us. The more we help each other, the better.
gotcha. Okay, so I like to end off with rapid fire questions, and I haven't told you what these are. So, just very short. First thing that comes to mind. Go ahead. There's four questions that I have for you. Okay, so
Okay.
first one is, what's one book title or movie title you would use to describe your career?
Office Space. I love that movie. Not from. I don't know if you watched the movie. I just love it. Like, just it explained corporate world in a nutshell. But
Right.
why I like it is, I think it's not maybe a career journey, but I would say the reason why I like it is it showed how it's important that you motivate your team to deliver. And without, motivating, like, people are leaving, or people are just, but that movie is just funny. And I just love it. So the first thing that came to my mind is Office Space. It's an old movie. I think it's from 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's classic, and I think the Red Stapler was from there
Yeah,
too.
the red
About that?
stapler
Okay,
and
okay,
the
gotcha,
Hawaiian t-shirts day and all that.
gotcha, gotcha,
It's like
gotcha. Yeah, I
jeans day
haven't
at
actually
work.
seen, I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard enough about the.
You have to. So the right away to me, it's like office space,
Okay.
because I went through restructures when I was within different organizations in retail, and the
Yeah.
movie explains restructures. I had a bad boss in the career. It's in the movie, so it's kind of
Sure. 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 Sure.
it's there.
Gotcha. Second question: what's your alter ego profession? If you weren't doing retail operations lead, what would you be doing?
Teaching.
Teaching. Gotcha.
Yeah, teaching. Yeah, I love
Nice, cool,
teaching
nice, nice.
retail.
Retail. Okay, so at the
It
at the
always has to be retail, but I would say teaching. And I was contemplating, do I take the PhD focused on retail and then go back into teaching? But something to do with teaching for sure. If I didn't do like business world, it would definitely be teaching.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Irena, what's one word that you love?
Love.
Okay.
There we
Yeah.
go. I love no, I but one word that I love, I can't think of anyone at the moment, but there we go. We
Mhm.
could say love because it
Gotcha.
spreads positive
Okay.
stuff.
Yep, I agree. What's one word that you hate?
Hate. That's the word I hate.
Really?
I really
That's the
do.
easy way out.
I know. No, think fast in my no, but seriously, when you think about it, hate. But no, the one word. What do I can't think of any, but definitely hate is not what it means, right?
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't like, but that's I
One of my
can't think
guests,
of a word that I
one of my
hate.
guests said anything that ends with ION. So organization,
Oh,
transformation.
strategy. I'm not a big fan of. You got to be more strategic. So from a business perspective, yes, when I hear visionary strategy, okay, great. But
Okay,
at the end of the day, I think people need to know how to get stuff done.
gotcha, gotcha.
And I think where you learn that a lot is definitely the industry.
Okay.
You learn how to get stuff done for sure.
So last question I have for you. Uh, Over COVID, did you develop any habits or hobbies, and what were they?
Habit of sitting, looking at my laptop. No, it's bad. I think the habit that I developed during COVID, I would say what's interesting is I was on mat leave when COVID hit. So I was hoping to get back into workforce, right? Like just going back, away from home and just being able to, go to the office. However, what happened
Right,
to me
right,
is I actually got back home and I'm still at home and working from home. And on top of that, two small kids. So it's been a challenge. The habit I would say is something that's very important is just I found during COVID and when I was back at work, constant Zoom calls, video calls, like we all are inundated with meetings. And I think what I find is I tend to have more meetings now and more video calls than, in the office, you're able to, just take a walk and ask a question. Now you got to
right.
schedule a meeting. But I would say the habit is just shutting down maybe throughout the
Mm,
day, like maybe take 5 minute break to yourself. And I just started because of sitting and all the sitting, and I'm usually was always active. I started, I got to start exercising and definitely have a goal in mind of getting back in shape when I'm for sure. But I would say walking and just getting your head clear is very important
right.
because when you're caught inside, it's just tough. So
Gotcha. Great. Well, thank you so much, Irina. I really appreciate your time and especially in understanding your circumstance today that we need to shift the time. So don't go away. I'm going to talk to you after we end the
yeah,
broadcast.
no, for sure.
Thanks so much, and I'll talk to
Thanks,
you in a few minutes.
thanks for having me, Simeon.
Wow, what a very exciting interview and conversation. And with Irina, someone like her, it's really more of a conversation for myself. She's someone that I look up to quite a bit as a mentor, as a peer mentor. But there's a lot of experiences in her life, as you've heard, that really can be learned from. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that as well. That's it for today. We've got guests coming up next week as well. Stay tuned for notices, and please do remember to click that remind me button so you know when we're going to go on. Today might be a little bit different because I know the actual remind me says 3 o'clock, so that's no problem at all. But be sure to check out the rebroadcast afterwards, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to Irina. She's more than happy to help you out there. All right. So until then, stay safe, guys, and we'll see you real soon. Take care.